Tanzania. Right here today, you are expecting Justice Koome's vetting to happen, and of course this just points to a more progressive world in terms of women taking up space in leadership and perhaps better times when it comes to representation. Now I'd like to talk to open this up with with our guest today, Ms. Majani. Could you tell us, in your view, what would it take to be a leader? Because in your capacity as a banker and at the same time as someone who is aspiring to be a leader, what is it that is intrinsic in you that you feel is the thing that aspires you to go for leadership?
Thank you so much for having me. I think as a leader, what aspires me most is the fact that I know what people want, the fact that I know what participatory politics means, the fact that I know it is a matter of bottom-up approach as opposed to just up-bottom. That human development urge, the human development yearn to see people get elevated from point A to point B. That is basically what entails good leadership. And then chapter 6, because without integrity, you can only do so much. Yeah.
Okay, and what you're saying actually reminds me of an interview of former President Joyce Banda, who says to be a leader, it's nothing to do with your academics or your qualification. It has to do with you being in love with the population that you aspire to lead, and that would take that sort of bottom-up approach where you understand the needs and are aspiring to deliver. So could you speak to that element? Is there something, perhaps, let me give you the example of the former president who said that she had health issues in terms of reproductive health, and that inspired her to fight for women's health, especially maternal health. So with you as an aspiring leader, can you say that you have seen things in your locality, in the people you want to represent, that you have said, this is something that I want to address?
Very true. Personally, in my capacity, like the county I come from, my native county, which is Vihiga, I see two major constituencies that are dire to our lives. I see the youth and I see the women.
Okay.
And if I don't want to be as layman, you would call it the underserved.
Okay.
You would call them the marginalized. Like where I come from in Vihiga, women are key. Women are the breadbaskets.
Sure.
On the other hand, the youth are also very key. They're energetic. They have the academic credentials, but here they are hopeless. There's really grim future for them if you sit with them and ask them one or two things. So when I see women in Vihiga come up and, form groups, do advocacy among themselves, I see the urge to reach out and just tell them, yes, you can.
Okay, but then when women leaders have been accused of having a very lackluster approach towards representation. You'd find that most of them would approach it from the approach of maybe just giving handouts or maybe lassos and, sanitary towels. But then one would hope that they would go deeper into the element of policy and shifting at the top level so that things trickle down to the bottom. Would you say this is true? And how would you approach certain issues from a level that will see even whoever will take over after you, they will take over from a situation that has progressed?
I'd want to look at it very objectively, not in terms of she for she or Winnie favoring a woman, simply because I'm one. Many a time, and this is why I keep on calling on my fellow women to come up, to step up and be part of critical spaces. I say critical spaces because many a time you find, number one, look at the governors where there is a bulky budget, where there is a really fat budget, vis-a-vis a woman representative seat where there is a lesser budget. And then number two, where I come from, due to societal norms, they are very, very, actually in Luhya Western, there is no single seat that has been won by a woman apart from the affirmative action seat.
Okay.
And you see, the seat of a member of Parliament at constituency level has CDF. MCAs, out of the 25 MCAs we have in Vihiga County, only one is a woman. However, I want to say yes and no. I'm giving women leaders accolades. However, I also have a misgiving when it comes to maybe us coming out actively and stop embracing this lobby mentality, stop embracing this agenda of advocating what our male counterparts are doing. For example,
sorry to interrupt you, but for many, that is deemed the way to survive. In order for you to actually make it to a certain elected position or even to get a certain nomination, you must tie yourself to a certain agenda that is being fronted by a male politician. How would you go about such a situation?
You see, I'll repeat again. I don't know how this will be done. Now this will go back to our constitution. Matters political representation, where we are looking at the 2/3 gender rule, because you find that even at the executive structure, there are no women. And you know that boils down to the polling station, to the branch level, to the constituency level. So I think even as we bring men on board, women in politics, we should also, you know, they say the challenges women are facing is that in the room when you step in, 99% of the people you find are men.
Yes.
But then I think from our part where we come from, we should use that opportunity as an avenue to stand out, as an avenue not to be overlooked. The other day I was looking at Honorable Charity Ngilu, you know, amidst men. There was Right Honorable Raila Odinga, there was Honorable James Orengo, there was Honorable Tende Amolo, and there was Atuli Francis, the Kotu boss. And I was telling myself, what is making Ngilu stand out? So in my view, I'd urge as women to stand out and use that particular tiny space to really stamp our authority, as opposed to being ceremonial figures, you know, around the men in politics.
Yeah, this is true. And just to quote Provost Samuel Wanaina recently in a publication, one of the dailies, he actually commented and said that women should shun, or rather move away from nominated positions. That you've talked about the element of representation, and perhaps this should be etched in, it is already etched in the constitution, but then he feels that women should approach leadership from a competitive aspect. How realistic, when you look at the situation on the ground, how realistic is it for a woman to go at it with male counterparts, given the kind of cutthroat competition that is out there?
I want to be the devil's advocate here, and I'm not here to, you know, do pity-party commentary.
Sure.
But we have to be realistic as possible. Number one, as at where we are now as a country, and to an extent even the world at large, we don't have a level playing field as far as participatory politics, as far as elective politics. Why? I, Winnie Majani, I say this again and again, and I'll repeat. If I was seen with a group of male, you know, the high net worth males, in a hotel, say at 7:30 p.m. or 6:30, and at a time that is deemed not early, I will be seen as that who has fair virtues. I'll be seen as that whose morality scale is dismal, as opposed to my male opponent who, if seen in a hotel at, say, 7 p.m., he'll be seen as that who's wheeler dealing, he'll be seen as that who's brokering, and he'll be seen as that who's networking. So this issue of nominated posts for women, I will say where we are now, our democracy is not very, very, you know, mature. We need women. I have seen women I look up to. I'm talking about the likes of Honorable Millie Mabona. Honorable Millie Mabona was once a nominated MP. So it gives you an avenue to showcase your strength. It gives you an avenue for visibility. And when you prove to the electorate that, yes, you can, even in your nominated state, you can then, you know, elevate yourself to a higher seat.
All right. Now, that takes me back to that element of our society and culture. Do you think the approach should be from an early stage when we're grooming women leadership, or if at all, because women are typically in some of our cultures not even seen as possible leaders until they decide they can be leaders? How can we change as society as when we approach the raising of young girls so that they can aspire to become leaders?
You see, now in my capacity, I remember I was privileged to feature in a KTN show called Miss President, and the idea about it was just to show the citizenry that yes, women can lead. So I would want to urge us, and even me in my capacity as Winnie Vihiga Women Rep aspirant and a banker, I often talk to ladies, I often talk to men as well, because you realize you can't talk to one party lest you face resentment from the other.
Yeah.
So you bring both on board, all on board, and begin to, tell them it's all about how we as people are socialized, that women are supposed to be confined to servitude, that women are supposed to stay at home to take care of their families and all that, which is not bad, which is, I actually like, taking care of family and all that. But at the same time, tell them women can lead.
Yeah.
Women can lead. And by telling them, is not just telling them, bringing up more women on board, encouraging them, capacity build, and also do advocacy about the same.
All right. You are a banker, and this leadership element is not just in politics, it's also in the corporate world. Could you explain to us some of the challenges women face and why it is quite difficult to break that glass ceiling rather?
I'd say at the moment, I'm actually impressed at the way women are coming up in corporate spaces. In fact, according to, there was a survey done 2 years ago by some, I'll validate that because I don't want to sound ambiguous, where more and more women are coming up for top leadership positions. Even where I am now, the top leadership, there are women there.
Yeah.
However, if you look at now mid-level management and below, that is where the problem is. Like the man, because you find women in roles like receptionist, cleaner jobs, low, before the eyes of man, you would call those jobs as those of low cadre. I'm not saying this to demean anyone, but you find as far as compensation, remuneration, they're at a disadvantaged level.
Yes. Yeah. And then that brings me to the topic of the gender pay gap. Is that a possible way of empowering women? Because at the same time, you notice even when leaders are at the same, when leaders or women workers, let's just say, in an organization are at the same level, you'd find their male counterparts are being paid better than their women counterparts. And this is a global issue. So could you speak to that and how that actually goes against the empowerment of women and perhaps how that would change women rising in society?
I think it's a challenge that ourselves, it is double-faced. Number one, it has also to come from us, where we're supposed to be as bold enough as possible. I'm not trying to say women are not bold. I think it's high time we started also looking at women like human beings with human rights. But I'm saying from the woman's part, you'll come up in case there is an upscale, of job group. Come up and apply for those positions. Right.
Now, as a leader, you're already a senior banker and a manager. How would you like to progress politically? You are aspiring to be a woman rep, but I would assume that is not it. That's not the ultimate ambition.
Yeah.
Where are you heading?
Well, at the moment, I'm in a corporate space, yes, but I've always had a keen eye on politics, because politics is everywhere. You find that in the banking environment, I see a woman come, a depositor, a woman who has, say, 50,000 or 100,000 shillings. And I'm asking myself, it is easy to save a group than just an individual. I'm telling myself, if I can get a chance of just going to those groups of 30, out of this one that I've seen who doesn't maybe know what to do with the 100,000, you can imagine how society would deem fit.
Okay.
So that is actually, and you find many a time, the politics of corporate are not entirely dissimilar. It's only that what you'd find new it is this other hand, the corporate platform is kind of a straitjacket, you know, restricting. But now when you go to the murky waters of politics, and no wonder you see our Honorable DP dressed in ADC regalia today, and tomorrow he's Muslim. You know that you can't pull such a stunt
as a woman. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. Not in the Kenyan society.
Yes.
Actually, it can be a bit tricky. And of course, social media platforms. This is something that people use a lot. Do you think this is a safe space for women to actually push for their agenda in light of them being poorly funded, even to go and do the same thing their male counterparts would when it comes to campaigning and what have you? Do you think social media has provided a good platform for women to actually push for their agenda?
I would say social media, when used responsibly, is really, really an avenue to push someone or push a woman aspirant to scales. Me, for example, social media has helped me many a time, because sometimes an individual will see what you're doing on the ground as far as human development activities, and someone will just reach out and maybe want to step in. However, it is also a liability, especially for women in politics. So-called violence, so-called cyberbullying. If a woman aspirant is applauded, a photo of Winnie Majani is uploaded on social media, many a time the discourse would not revolve around issues. You'd find the discourse based on sexuality, you know, how are your cheeks, how are your, torso, how are your eyes, and objectivity tends to really diminish.
Right.
So it is a plus and a minus. But they say there are no emotions in politics. I would just want to urge women who are aspiring to develop a thick skin, an extra thick skin, such that no amount of cyberbullying is going to bring you down.
All right.
So it is a plus and a liability.
Okay, and as someone who's aspiring to be in politics, what would you say as a closing remark to a young lady who's watching at home to encourage her to go for it?
I'd want to encourage a young lady who's watching me because it is real, it is doable. You don't have to be perfect. Actually, number one, ask yourself, what is this that is bringing you into this space? Ask yourself, what is your vision? What is your goal? And what is the end result? And even as you go, I'd want to tell you that there'll be cases where you'll fall. That does not mean that's a permanent stop for you. Just rise up, dust up, and move on as fast as possible. And remember, no one is imperfect. Rather, no one is perfect. Human being is actually to imperfection. It all depends on now how you're going to dwell on that imperfection. So as a young woman who's out there, who's looking at, say, Honorable Charity Ngilu, Honorable Millie Mabona, and etc., the DG who was to be here with me from Nyeri County, who's looking at them and say, hey, I can't be those women because I don't have what it takes. No, you have what it takes. With all the flaws, you can actually tell the world that you did it.
Absolutely.
Hillary Clinton in the United States of America, you know, she's someone who was once a Secretary of State. She vied for presidential election. She didn't make it, but she didn't fall down.
Yes.
And she'll go in history as those women who've made it in life.
Okay.
So go, go, go. That young girl in Vihiga, go, go, go. I'm actually going to raise your hand because I know I'm going to be your women rep soon, or senator.
All right. Thank you so much. That is Winnie Vuguza Majani, who is aspiring to take up the position of women rep for Vihiga County and go on beyond to other positions. Thank you so much for making time to have this conversation with me this morning. And speaking of women in leadership, we shall be bringing you coverage of the Martha Koome vetting in Parliament later on. She is set to take on as the first to take on the position of the first CJ in the first female CJ in the country. So stay tuned to KTN News for that. But moving on, for decades, top schools that dominated Kenya's KCSE performance landscape include Starehe Boys Center, Alliance Boys and Girls High Schools, Precious Blood, Riruta, and Lelana School, among others. Today, some of these schools are struggling to keep their name